All right, good morning, everyone. Let's begin the day by giving charity. We'll give charity, which tzedakah saves the Jewish people. And it says you can even give tzedakah and make conditions. Say, God, I'm giving this tzedakah on the condition that you save the Jewish people, that you bring back our prisoners that were taken, and all the Jews that are imprisoned in the whole world in the penitentiary of ignorance and disinterest, uninterest, let us say, apathy. Here's charity. But the main thing is we need Moshiach now. Great. Now we'll begin. We're learning today a sentence from the Torah, from this week's Torah portion. What do we see happen in this week's Torah portion? That they're taking revenge for something that began like 2 weeks ago. We're talking about that the Midianites caused the Jewish people to sin, and because of that there was a plague. 24,000 Jews died, and now God is telling Moshe to tell the Jewish people to put on their arms and take revenge from Midian. So let's see, we have the sentence over here. Here's the sentence. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if we can see this over here. Yes, yes, yes. See, Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, Nakom Nikmas Bnei Israel, take the revenge of the Jewish people from the Midianites. Achar, and afterwards, Teosef Elamecha, and afterwards, Moshe, you're going to leave the Jewish people. You're going to die. You're going to be gathered into your people, it says. Even though it says in another place that Moshe did not die. Vayedaber Moshe, and Moshe spoke to the people, and he said, Heichaltzu me'itchem. Heichaltzu means arm yourselves. Heichaltzu seems to imply everybody arm themselves. We're going to see this in the mimer in a moment. Arm yourselves. Everyone arms yourself. Mi'itchem. Only some of you. Anashim l'tzava. Men of fighting ability. Usually from 20 to 60. V'yu al Midian. And they should go to Midian. They should be over Midian. L'teit nitkmas Hashem b'Midian. And they should be there to give the revenge of God on Midian. So here it says that the revenge of the Jewish people, and here it says the revenge of Hashem on Midian, because God fights for the Jews. They're his people. Okay, so it says, Heichaltzu meitchem. There it is. Heichaltzu. Arm yourselves. Arm yourselves. Meitchem, some of you. So we're going to see this seems to be a contradiction. We'll see in a moment. But let's go back to the sentence. Here we go. Back to the sentence. Now, again, this is a mimer, a discourse, an essay, which was originally spoken by the first Rebbe of Chabad, about 250 years ago. And it's put into a book which is called Likuti Torah. Nice thick book over there, see? Nice book. Likuti Torah, and that's what we're learning. Heichaltzu meitchem. Arm yourselves from you. Tzorach Laban, we have to understand. Havalei Lameimar, it should have said, let me get my pointer over here. Heichaltzu meitchem, it should have said Yechaltzu, they should arm themselves. They should arm themselves, those people from you, of you. If it says Heichaltzu, arm yourselves, it seems to imply everyone should arm themselves. The Kaven Sheneamar me'itchem, but since it says everyone arm yourselves from you, and then it says later on 1,000 from each tribe, whatever. Hainu miksatam, a little bit. Elef lamatel, 1,000 people of every tribe. In Kain, if so, it should have said Yechaltzu. Right? They should arm themselves. Gam also, Ma'u Inyan, what does it mean? Nikmas Hashem the Midian. What does it mean? The revenge of God against Midian. It already said before, we just read the sentence, the revenge of the Jews. Take revenge on Midian. They caused the death of 24,000 Jews. Avenge them. One time it says of the revenge of the Jews, another time it says the revenge of God. Ma'u also, what does it mean? Lakol matot. What does it mean? Take to all of the camps. It should say mikol matot. Here, let's see. Let's have a look and see what he's talking about over here. Here. It says, look. Says, Elef lamata, 1,000 from each camp, 1,000 from each camp, likol to all of the camps. There were 12 camps, right? 12 whatever encampments. Each tribe had its own encampment. So there was a camp of Ephraim and a camp of Manasseh and a camp of Benjamin and a camp of Gad. All of them had to give 1,000 equally. So it should have said 1,000 from each camp. What does it mean 1,000 to each camp? Okay, so we have 3 questions so far. Why does it say take the revenge of God? Here it says take the revenge of the Bnei Yisrael, the Jewish people, from the Midianites. And Moshe says, hey chaltzu, everyone arm themselves from you. It should say ye chaltzu, they should arm themselves from you. And finally, why does it say elif lamata? Why does it say likol? Take 1,000 of each camp. It should have said 1,000 from each camp or of each camp. What does it mean 1,000 to each camp? Okay, these have meanings. We'll see. All right, so obviously there's something being hinted at over here, which is much deeper than the simple meaning. Also, if you take it by the simple meaning, so it's pretty meaningless to us, except maybe a history lesson. But why would God want to? God, who writes the Bible? God. God wrote the Torah, and God is trying to tell us a message. What's the message that he's trying to tell? The 3,300 years ago that we fought against Midian, that's the message, because they did bad to us. So, okay, it's a nice message. Why go into the whole entire thing? With all of the details, how many people from each camp, and also it seems that there's certain grammatical errors over here. This is they're not grammatical errors. If you take it at face value, then you can say that they're grammatical errors. But the fact is it's trying to hint to you that there's something under the surface. And what's under the surface, as we said so many times, one of the one of the basic principles that Hasidut wants to teach everyone is that everything that's in the Torah is in each one of us. So in each one of us, there's Midian, and each one of us, there's Moshe, and each one of us, there's the tribes, and each one of us, there's this war. So we have to, so it means that it's not just something that happened a long time ago. It is something that happened a long time ago, but it's something that's telling us what we have to do now. So we also have to be in a constant state of war. But here the war is talking about what's going on inside of us more than what's going on outside. It's not coming to negate war outside, but it's coming to tell us that sometimes you have to fight wars outside, but the main war you have to fight, and that's constant, is inside. Because the message is a constant message for every single Jew for all time, and from the Jews eventually to all mankind. Okay, let's go. So it says, who are they fighting against over here? And they're taking the revenge of God against Midian. Who is Midian? Midian was the nation that sent their daughters to make the Jewish people sin. And they didn't just sin by having relations with these women, but also each one of them had a little idol around her neck. And she said, I'll do whatever you want, but first of all, bow down to this idol. That's all I want. And the Jewish men did it. They figured a small price to pay, for a good time. So they all bowed down. So it says eventually it caused the death of 24,000 Jews. There were the Jews that actually did the sins. And then there were Jews that just stood by and either passively stood by or they passively a passive active. They enjoyed what they were seeing. Who knows? In any case, they didn't do anything to stop it. So 24,000 died. So Midian, where did they get this? The Midianites get this idea to do this from Bilam. Bilam tried to curse the Jews, and it didn't work. And so he went to Midian and he said, "Listen, I got an advice for you. Want to destroy the Jews? This is how to do it. You can catch more Jews with honey than you can with vinegar, huh?" Achine bechinas Midian. This thing of Midian, who mamish neged bechinas Shem. This is an aspect that God created, which is against God. Look, and therefore, Kodam Matan Torah, before God gave the Torah, there had to be Hachnat Klipat Midian. There had to be the destruction of Midian. Al Yadei, by means of Yitro, Cohen Midian. This war that happened here was right before the Jews went into Israel. But the weakening of Midian came from Yitro. Yitro eventually became the, how do you say, the father, the father-in-law of let me get this right. I'm sorry. Yitro, he became he became a convert. He became a convert. Yitro was like the king of idolatry in the whole world. And he started to realize that idolatry was not where it's at, and he believing in God. So he surprised everybody by saying, "I'm going to go and join the Jewish people." And no one dreamed of doing something like that. And so Yitro, by means of doing this, he weakened Midian. He weakened because he was Kohen Midian. He was the Kohen, the high priest of this place, Midian. Sha'omar, he said, Ata Yadati, now I know that God is greatest. It says he heard about the war with Amalek, especially. And when he heard that the Jewish people, and there was this splitting of the sea, and God did these miracles with them, splitting of the sea and Amalek, and God won this battle with Amalek, then he said, now I know that the Jews, they're the right people. I'm going to go with them. That's the only real God, the creator of the universe. That's for me. Okay, so that weakened it, but it didn't weaken. It just put a little crack in this wall, which is called Midian. Okay, now maybe is the time to explain something which is very unexplainable, and that is how there is bad in the world. The first of the 10 commandments is, I am God that took you out of Egypt. That's the first of the 10 commandments. I am God that took you out of Egypt. Now, the second commandment is, don't worship any other gods. A question asks itself, what type of accomplishment is that God took us out of Egypt? God creates Egypt. God creates everything. They took us out of Egypt. It's such a big deal. God could have just said, okay, I'm not going to create Egypt anymore. It's too much trouble. But that's not how God made the world. God made the world. And it's the same question about the devil. Does the devil exist? Does God exist? How does it live? So the answer is, of course, the devil exists. It's like Egypt. They exist. God creates them. God creates them all the time that they should oppose him. Now, don't ask me too much about this because I'm asking myself, I don't really understand it. It seems to me that God overdid it a little bit, but that's a little bit sort of a blasphemous thing to say. There's too much trouble for the Jewish people, but Mashiach will come and explain that it's not so. So essentially, evil is created in the world in order to arouse the Jewish people, to arouse their power of defiance. How deep is the power of defiance of the Jewish people that they're willing to defy Egypt or Midian or the devil? The devil is another word for our own selfish impulses. Are we willing to defy these things and eventually even to transform them? Are we willing? So if God wanted just to be served, whatever, he would have just left the angels. The angels are always burning up and doing all these things that God likes and crying out to God. But that's not what God really likes. What God really likes is for people to change their nature. The nature of the angels is to praise God. Angels feel that everything is being created by God, and they do. So they praise God automatically. They got nothing else to do. and they realize that their whole existence comes from God. But the Jews have a lot of other things to do, a lot, and they do them. And God, in a way, wants them to have the opportunity to do them. Doesn't want them to do, doesn't want the Jews to sin. But he definitely does want there to be an opportunity and a inclination and a temptation to do sins. And he also gives you reward. You do a sin, you feel good. And you feel comfort, you feel this, and all the idolatry which is in the world, where there's millions, billions of people that believe in these different idols and churches and things like that. And it makes them feel good, right? They're all enthusiastic about it. The Jews themselves, they were enthusiastic about the golden calf. So in other words, bad, evil really exists. What does exist? And it opposes God, because that's the way God wants it. God creates evil every single second, and evil opposes him to oppose him. Okay, this cannot be taken too simply. That can't be simply. But on the other hand, it can't be thrown out also, because that's basically the explanation when it comes into the real world and you see real suffering. So then it starts not to make sense anymore. Then that's what I said. It seems to me that, good idea, wonderful philosophy, but when you can't philosophize on pain, right? Famous. So, okay. V'gam ma'u l'kol matot. Ian is like this. The B'shas Matan Torah, when God gave the Torah, almost all the nations got together. Ad until Shepatchu Kulam, all of them said, Hashem oz lamo yitain, Hashem yivorech et amo b'shalom. The story goes like this, that the world was shaking. When God gave the Torah to the Jews, the whole world was shaking. The Creator revealed himself. So they all went to Bilam. Bilam, he is the ultimate prophet. He's a prophet. It says he had the level of prophecy of Moses. A non-Jew. God especially gave a prophecy to a non-Jew. Didn't do it after that. No more. There was no more prophets after Bilam. But he did give it to Bilam. Bilam really messed things up. You'll see how he did it. But nevertheless, he did give prophecy to Bilam. And everyone went to Bilam and said, what's going on? And he said, God is giving the Torah to the Jews. And everyone said, Hashem oz lamo yitain. God is giving power to the Jewish people. He's giving his people peace. He's blessing the Jewish people with peace. That's going to be the topic of our learning today. Peace. Kamaim Rizal that says that Osik B'Torah, a person who learns the Torah, Mesim Shalom, he puts peace. He makes peace between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. That's what the Torah is supposed to be. Peace. Okay, why does the Torah make peace? Because God is creating the world, and the Torah is the manufacturer's instructions for the world. Right? You want your computer to work, you read the instructions, or at least you learn from somebody how it works, right? You know what the buttons are for, and you know that this. Everything has instructions to it. When you use the instructions, then the thing comes out popular. It comes up. There's times you can get lucky, right? You can just sort of figure it out yourself. But generally speaking, it doesn't work out. Hey, what's this button for? Oh, the whole thing blows up. You have to know which things you use and when you use it and how to use it, and which you don't use and forbidden to use, and when you're driving, don't put it says over there 1, 2, 3, and then R. What's R mean? Maybe it means like racing. Let's put it in racing. No, it means reverse. You can't put it. So you have to know what things are here in the world for. So that's what the Torah is. Once a Jew, of course it's more complicated than that, but the Torah also tells us what to do with our emotions, what to do with our. So the Torah ideally is to make peace in the world, especially because what the Torah does is remind us that there's a creator, that there is a manufacturer, and that the creator is creating us right now, and that he cares about us. That's why he gave us the Torah, so that we will know what to do. And the Torah tells us that, that there's going to be opposition. You can't take things at face value. Don't kill, even though you might want to kill. Don't steal. Don't lust after things that are forbidden. You want to lust after things. That's natural that you want to lust after things, but don't listen to your lusts. Don't do it. That's the Torah comes and tells us what to do. So that makes peace in the world. That makes peace in the world. There are things you can do, the things you can't do, the things you must not do, the things you must do in the Torah. So Torah puts peace in the world. The non-Jews have what's called 7 Noahide commandments, which are also pretty complicated when it comes down to it. But that the purpose of the Torah is to make peace. And this is going to be the idea of peace. Midian is against peace, against harmony. Ulavan, let's understand. So it says, let's understand these two types of peace. What two types of peace? That God makes peace in the upper worlds, Pamilia Shamayla, and the upper family, and the Pamilia Shalmata and the lower family. Right? The upper family. What does it mean? What are these two types of peace? We have to understand. Hine, behold, Bechorban Beit HaMikdash. It says when the first temple was destroyed, Omer Rizal, the rabbis say, Viter HaKodesh Baruch Hu, Al Avodas Kochavim, Megillah, Amaras Shvichas Damim. In the time of the first temple, there were Jews that were worshiping idols, right? That started off automatic almost immediately. The Jews were worshiping even golden calves, it says they were worshiping. Huh? And they're worshiping the stars and the moon, everything. And Gilei Arayas, they were doing all sorts of sexual sins, and Shvichas Damim, and bloodshed. Not that everyone was doing it, but there were some that were doing it, and no one stopped them. God, and it says the first temple, God destroyed, and the Jewish people were in exile for 70 years. And after 70 years, God viter. God, what do you say? He to forego, forwent, what there's such a word like that? That God forgave idolatry and licentiousness and even murder. Below viter al bittul Torah. But he was not willing to forgive bittul Torah. So God said, okay, the Jewish people are sinning. I'll give them a little bit more time. No, they're not learning the Torah. 70 years of exile. That's it. Chorban by Sheni, the second destruction, the second temple was destroyed. But the Jews came back from Babylon. And they were 70 years in Babylon. They came back and they rebuilt the temple. The second temple stood 10 years longer than the first, stood 420 years. So after the second temple, Hayorak Bishvil Avon Sinat Chinam. The destruction of the second temple, the Jews learned their lesson. There was no idolatry, and that went unpunished at least, and there was no there was no idolatry, and there was no the licentiousness, etc. Not like the first temple. What was the sin of the second temple? Sinat Chinam. People hated each other, and they hated each other for no justified reason. If so, if so, why is there such a long exile? 2,000 years. Shabeit HaMikdash Charav Yoter Miyud Zayin Meot Shana. Then 17. Was it? Was 1700? No. So 1700. That's right. 1700 years. 1,700. That's right. 1,700. That's in the time when the Alter Rebbe was speaking. 1,700 years. Now it's all 1,900 years. But Galat Bavel, the exile in Bavel, which was because of these terrible sins, we said, nevertheless, it was only 70 years. Oh, so now we're seeing that God does not like discord, doesn't like hatred. Okay, so where does hatred come from? Hatred is a thing that God is also an option. It's an option, right? Just like murder is an option. It's a desire that people do. People like people like to some people like to steal. Some people even like to kill. Idolatry says almost all the Jews have some sort of a inclination to idolatry. Right? It appeals to them somehow or other. What about hatred? Hatred is not so bad. It says, oh yeah, in the first temple, the Jews did the 3 terrible sins. It says you're supposed to give your life not to do those sins, to worship idols, to kill somebody else, and to do a forbidden sexual act. You're supposed to give your life not to do those things. But hating people is not such a bad thing. I mean, you don't have to give your life not to hate somebody. It says, yeah, that's what you think. The fact of the matter is hating is more severe than all those 3 things. God was willing to forgive the Jews for those 3 things. Overlook. Oh, that's the word for it. Overlook. But what the Jews hated each other? No way. 2,000 years. Of course, the reason it's so long is not what they did, but what they're doing right now. They keep doing it. At least when the first temple was destroyed, they came to their senses. Okay, no more idolatry. That's it. We're not worshiping idols anymore. Okay, good. We're not going to do it. We're going to try to curb our lusts. It was clear what their sins were, and they stopped themselves. But hate in other people, it's not so clear. Especially because when you hate people, you think it's a very good thing, right? It's a very good thing. There are even rabbis on YouTube that they advertise how much they hate other rabbis, and they justify it, and and they tell their crowd, you have to hate these people also. And the reasons are really not sufficient reasons. They think it is, of course. But the fact of the matter is it's just they want to hate somebody, so they found a good target. So what is this idea of hatred? It must be that we do it also, not just these people you see advertised. They exaggerate on YouTube, right? Everybody doesn't think like I am, as an apostate, as a this, that. I mean, that's, blatant hatred. But there's also latent hatred. Oh. And that everybody has to fight against. Here we go. Ready? That's our enemy, and we're going to see how to eradicate that enemy. That's a war, making the war against Midian. We're going to see Midian is the language of contention and war. Madon and Meriba. Indian is like this. The Shiva Umos, there are what's called 7 nations. 7 nations that God promised to Abraham. He's going to give them the land of 10 nations. And the fact, when Joshua took over the land, he only took over 7. Why 7? Why not 4? Why 7? Because the number 10 is what we call the full picture of God's presence in the world. The number 10. Because it refers to the 10 sfirot. We talked about that. The 10 sfirot, the 10 commandments, the 10 utterances, the 10. But it ends up that we only got 7. Because 7 is also, that's in a way the main ones. That's the emotions. The 7 nations that were in the land of Canaan, when Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob came, there's the Canaani, Vachiti, Vaprizi, Vayevusi. It says Vahaya Asher Totiru Mehem. It says it says don't leave any of them over. If any of them are left over, they're going to make you trouble. That's what it says when Joshua came in. You have to wipe them all out. Either they run away or you have to kill them. The Jews are a conquering nation, you understand? That's what it says in the Bible. That God purposely did not give the land of Israel, first of all, to the Jews. He promised it to the Jews first, that's true. But he gave the land to be inhabited by others. And we had to make war. Joshua made war, and he evicted all the others. He said, but don't leave any of them over. Don't leave any of them over. These are, and in fact, there did remain, and King David had to fight with them, and there still remains. Okay, so it says, Kihem hoyu sheva midos ros. This corresponds to what's called the 7 bad emotions, 7 selfish emotions. Like I said in the beginning, God purposely wants there to be the option to do bad in the world. And that option is there. What they call it, Pandora's box or whatever. God wants it to be there. Wants it to be there. And this takes form in egotism. And there's all these different forms of egotism. And egotism, when it's expressed in a way that's like pure egotism, then it comes out all of these bad emotions. Some people, their thing is power, anger, they get angry. Some people is like fire. Some people is like water, right? They just want to flow, want to get pleasure out of the world, right? So others want to conquer. Others want that's what's called the 7 bad emotions. Therefore, Israel, when the Jewish people sinned, then in the first temple, then his Gabrubam, Sheva Midos, that all these 7 bad emotions popped up inside of them. These because there was left over from them. Let me turn the page here. see if I think I sort of got the point. Oh. Like it says, Va'atem lo tichratu brit, says you do not make any covenants with the non-Jews that are here. V'lo shamatem, and you didn't listen to me. The koli, umachmasam, because of that, nichshalu ba'averos chamoros, because of that they stumbled in very severe sins. Alkain, therefore, hayagalus Babel, therefore, when the Jews were in the land of Israel, they made pacts with the non-Jews that were there, and they copied their ways, and therefore they started sinning and doing these things because they, for the sake of peace, right? They wanted to get along with the non-Jews. Therefore, there was exile in Babel, 70 years. That by means of this, niknu sheva midos, nitkanu sheva midos anal, lakal mida eser shana. Therefore, there was 70 years, 10 years for each one of these of the 7 bad emotions. Because each one is included from 10. Like I said before, the number 10 is a complete number. That's the first temple. So the first temple, the Jews were controlled by the 7 bad emotions. But in the second temple, loya chet b'midos, their sin was not so much in bad emotions. They got their personality together. But sinat hatred. He and it is klippas midyan. That's klippas midyan. She'enu nichshav is not considered to be one of the 7 emotions. Be'enu ra gomer, it's not completely bad, like desires and, like we said before, lust. Right? It's not you want to take away somebody's wife, or you want to take away somebody's money, or you want to take away somebody's life, or something like that. It's not one of those bad emotions that fires a person up to do these obviously bad things. The sin in the second temple was people hated each other. That's the language of Midian. Midian, Madin, Riv, or Madon. You don't like other people because they're not you. Umidazu, this is, even though it's not totally bad, it's the source of bad. Is the opposite of holiness. So essentially, what is this hatred? What does it mean, meaningless hatred? Does anybody hate someone for no reason? Is there such a thing that people hate for no reason whatsoever? There's no such thing. Even crazy people, right, that they hate, they go on a rampage or something like that. They have an Oedipus complex, whatever they have. They do it because they had a bad upbringing, they had a bad something like that. And there was something that causes their hatred. So how can there be sinat chinam, hatred with no cause? So the answer is, what comes first, the hatred or the cause? Right? Even these people that go out and they say I had a bad upbringing, I had a bad this. It means basically that the person chose to do bad, and they found the reason why. He found the reason why. That was the big problem with all the psychiatrists and all the psychiatrists. They say a person is never guilty. It's always a product of his environment, right? He's a product of his, his parents' relationship, his Oedipus complex, or his superiority complex, or his peer pressure, or whatever. But what about the person himself? What about the person himself? That the person says sometimes there can be bad attributes in a person himself. Says there's bad attributes which are obvious, and there's bad attributes which are not. Namely, what's the one that's not obvious? That's one's self. Your feeling of me. I exist. Nothing bad about that, huh? Says, yeah, but when you start to feel that my existence is the real one, and everyone else's existence is something like mine. Something like mine. So it comes out that a person feels his egotism is the dominant reality. And anything that touches or in any way threatens, or at least I perceive to threaten, or is competition to my egotism, I hate it. It's my enemy. I got to get rid of it. So you see somebody that's a little more successful than you, or someone who's a little more younger than you, older than you, healthier than you. It doesn't make any difference why. It brings out this egotism. It brings out the essential love that we have for ourselves. Now, this love you have for yourself is not a bad thing, but if you put it in the wrong context and you use it in the wrong way, then it becomes a weapon of destruction. The opposite of holiness. Holiness is life. Holiness is realizing that there's a creator, and the creator is creating me. The creator is the ultimate reality. That's the ultimate reality, not me. So if someone insults me, it's not that's the end of the world. I'm just a creation, and there's a creator, and the creator has a plan for the creation. He's got a plan for the creation. Part of the plan is that this person insulted me. Okay, now what should I do? Well, let's look in the instruction book. And let's look in the Torah, see what it says. That's called holiness. That's called holiness. What's the opposite of holiness? Egotism. The opposite of Judaism is egotism. I want to go to heaven. I want reward. I want this. How do I say? I want it all and I want it now. Shehi davke bechinas achdus fiskalus. Holiness is unity and harmony. Shehu yesod kol Torah. This is the whole essence of the Torah. Like Hillel said, the alecha sane lechaverach al tavid. Someone went and asked Hillel, a zaken, Hillel. This is before the temple was destroyed. Hillel, what is the whole Torah? He said the whole Torah is that what is not good to you, don't do to others. The golden rule they call it. What do they call it? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I don't know. That's a little bit of the crooked way around. That's not, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What does that exactly mean? I mean, it's a little bit unclear, right? And let's say you're a boxer and you want people to punch you, so it means that you can punch them, right? You want to. So Hillel said, Rabbi Akiva said, love your friend. The Torah says, love your friend as yourself. You should love others like you love yourself. And Hillel said it a little bit differently. He said, what's not good to you, don't do to others. Don't do to others. The Idich Pirsha and the whole rest of the Torah is just an explanation on how you can do this. Avoid doing to others things that are distasteful to yourself. Because that's why it is by God. God does to others. God is one. God is unity. God is his clothes. God is harmony. It says that God and his vessels and his lights and all these upper worlds, it's all one. Huwa Yodea, God is the knower. God is the knowledge. In other words, everything in the world is totally one with God's oneness. It's not like some people think that there's the world and that there's God, right? God, there's the world and God. And to say otherwise is not, it's not so. There is really no world without God. God is creating the whole world, but it ends up that the world and God are one. Ki perish echad. What does it mean that God is one? When it says that God is one, we're not talking about God's essence. God's essence was there before he created the world. God's essence is called unique, alone. When we say that God is one, what does it mean? That there's a world, and that world is one with God. In all the seven heavens and the earth above. This is what's called the seven emotions of God, that all of them are harmonious and included and one with God's oneness. Now, this is not anything which we can comprehend, but what we're trying to say is that everything is being created by God, but it's being created by God in the most harmonious way possible, that everything exists. That's how the world is. And even though you see discord and then, there's stars that blow up and animals eat each other. And so, but that's part of the unity. Okay, and therefore, this aspect of Midian, the Nargran, Mafrid, and a contentious person that separates, who menaged l'shem Hashem. It opposes God. That God is one. Shagam kol midos, that even all the opposite emotions and aspects of God, like fire and water, kindness and power, everything is harmonious and united with God. Therefore, therefore, this exile that we're in now is because we're not reflecting this oneness of God. We're now fixing up and refining this hatred for no reason. And therefore, it takes a long time. Why does it take a long time? Because we don't notice we're doing anything wrong. Exactly the opposite. The other guy's doing something wrong. It's my fault. It's his fault. Right? He's the one that's doing something wrong. He gets on my nerves. It's his point. Maybe your problem is with your nerves. You're talking about it. You're one of them, huh? You're with them. I see the whole world is against me. So everybody's against everybody else. Why? Because they want unity. Everyone wants unity, but on my terms. On my terms. I want unity, that everyone should get along with me. It says, you don't get along with me, you don't agree with me. And you know who you're messing with? You're messing with me. I am real. I am the ultimate reality. And that's the cause of this feeling of selfishness, of exaggerated egotism, is what causes hatred. But it's the most natural thing in the world. Most natural thing in the world. That's what the rabbis say. Rishonim shenidgalo avonim, the first ones from the first temple, that their sin was revealed. Nizgala ketzam, the end was revealed. 70 years it says they'll be in exile. Right, the prophecies of Jeremiah and this 70 years. Why 70 years? Because the sin was revealed. They could fix it up. Nidgala avonam shayoragamor, when the sin, which was totally bad, murder, idolatry, therefore they could fix it up. They knew what they were doing wrong. Masha'in came al-Zemiyah, they could fix it up. Masha'in came achronim, which is not the case. The last ones, shalom nidgala avonam, that their sin was not finished. Hainu inyan sinat chinam, hatred. Right? A person, God forbid, he's a murderer, he's an idolater. The rabbis come and say, you want to know why we're in exile? We're in exile because you worshipped idols. It says in the Torah you're not supposed to. Listen, it wasn't so bad. I mean, you bowed down to an idol. You prayed to a person. Yeah, that's idolatry. Stop it. Okay, I get it. I'll stop it. It's clear, right? Licentious, right? You're lusting after somebody else's wife or something like that. It's a clear thing. You're doing wrong. Okay, yeah, but you've got excuses, but it's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. But what about hatred, others? The problem of this is because you hate people for no reason. I hate people for no reason. You're the one that's telling me that I hate people for no reason. It's not clear what the sin is. Okay, what do you want me to stop doing? To like you? I'm supposed to like you? Huh? And you're not going to fix yourself up? What do you want me to do to stop hating people? What you say is for no reason. First of all, I don't hate anybody. Second of all, the people that I do hate, it's for a reason. You just finished saying you don't hate anybody. Except for Shmerel. Him, how can you love a person like that? And then when you start looking at it, you realize that you're jealous of 100 people, and that you look at that, and then when you're a crooked nose at another 100 people, and then finally it ends up that everybody is some sort of a threat, right? Not everybody, 100 people, not 100 people, 10 people, not 100 people, one person. But nevertheless, there's a little bit that's already there. Why? Because it's a natural thing that a person don't mess with my comfort zone. And, and the comfort zones we make for ourselves are, in most cases, are false. What's the sign that they're false? That we feel threatened if anybody touches it, right? You called me a name, I'll show you. That's what the rabbis say. The first ones that the sin was revealed, which is not the case. The last ones, the sin was not revealed. Hatred of others, shekol echad mat'et asmo. Each person finds excuses and fools themselves. She'en ze avon gomer. It's not a complete sin. Al kain, therefore, lo niskala ketzam. The end was not revealed because she'en mitchartin kokach. They don't regret so much on doing this. Not only that, you misdirect your anger. You misdirect your anger, right? Getting angry at people that worship idols. No, that's a good thing. What are you worshiping idols for? But getting angry at somebody just because he has a nicer car than you, or he knows more Torah than you do, or because he's more successful than you are, or because his children are the big rabbis and your children are not, or he has children, you don't have children. The smallest, most stupid reasons that people can possibly have for not liking each other, people find. And not only that, they build it into a whole big edifice of it's a good thing to hate these people and it's a bad. There's people do things that are wrong. So we'll see what the fixing of it is. But in general, what it means is that you have to try to look at the world from God's point of view. At least try. Or at least look at yourself from God's point of view. After all, I'm just a creation. I'm not really calling the shots over you. And if you do see things that are bad, so you have to see the things that are bad, not the people who do the bad things. You can how do you say, the criticize things that are done. You can give bad names to things, the Democrats, the Republicans, the Zionists, the Reform, whatever you want to, the Hasidim, you want to find bad, that's good. There's arguments, the whole Talmud is filled with arguments, but they're arguing on topics, they're not arguing on people. You're an idiot, that's what you think, you're a fool. That's not, you don't do things like that. That's called meaningless hatred. You don't agree with me, then you're my enemy. No, not agreeing is not such a bad thing. Exactly the opposite. It makes harmony. But that's the whole idea of what's going on now. What's causing our exile that we're in now is this inability to bear others and the propensity to hate others. You have to put everybody in their compartment and judge everyone. Okay, so it says, it's just like if you have something that has a little bit of, let's say you have wine and it has a little bit of dregs on the top of it, a little bit, and you have to get rid of that. That's much more difficult than the heavy sediment that comes down on the bottom. So it's the same thing. For a person to fix up big sins, it's not so hard. Small sins, it's very difficult. A good example of that, and now we'll continue, is people that are Bali Tshuva. Bali Tshuva, they start off, and let's say a Jew, and he doesn't do Torah, doesn't do the commandments, and he realizes how far away he is from God, and he says, oh, I'm going to do the commandments, I'm going to do the Torah, I'm going to keep Shabbos, I'm going to eat kosher, I'm going to do that. Okay, so that's basically not so hard. The things that he wasn't doing, and the things that he was doing wrong, and the things that he wasn't doing right are pretty clear. But after he does Torah, and he does the commandments, and let's say he's 5 years into it, and he's pretty good. He's even giving classes, and he knows what to do. But all of a sudden, he gets a bad temper, starts yelling at people, right? Why? Because they're wrong. In other words, to fix up the big things that he could do, but to fix up the small things, he denies that there is even something wrong, because they're so ingrained in personality, and that becomes very difficult. And the Rebbe is saying one of the most difficult things is hating others, looking at other people with a negative eye. As we're going to talk about, God willing, tomorrow, why is it important? Because that's what's keeping us in the exile. That's what's keeping us in the exile. That's what's keeping the third temple from coming down. How to alleviate the situation, we're going to talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Now let's go to do the Yom Yom. Here we go.